17 things you have to learn for yourself
as a lesbian, gay,
bisexual, transgender,
questioning intersex,
asexual, pansexual,
or otherwise queer youth
by the time you were 17.
One is that the first Pride was a riot. I don't mean that it was full of laughter or that it was some grand party where everyone spiraled up to dance among the stars, because the only thing glittering that night was the broken glass and the cobblestones. The first Pride was a riot on the back streets of New York, and they never tell us that that night we won. They never tell us that it was the only protest in a decade full of turmoil where the cops had to hide from the shouting, dancing rioters who fought to reclaim the only ground that they had ever been able to say was theirs. Stonewall is only an echo of a name in our history, Christopher Street, Liberation Day, even less. But I swear to you, the first thing you need to know is the first Pride was a riot, and...
2. Around the same time it took place, it was a debated topic in the gay community whether or not it would be too bold to say that they weren't mentally ill, which...
3. Homosexuality was only removed from the American Psychiatric Association's list of mental illnesses in 1974. Congratulations! All it took was a riot and 5 more years of protest before they decided, with a vote, that, whoops, we were never actually mentally ill, except...
4. There are still teenagers being tortured today in what some dare blaspheme as therapy used to destroy their self-identity in the hopes of making them normal. Except 4, the queer community still carries overwhelmingly high rates for poverty and homelessness and depression. Did you know that?
5. Over half the children forced into conversion therapy commit suicide, or
6. That before the AIDS crisis, lesbians were considered hangers-on by much of the gay community, because as it turns out...
7. You can wear a rainbow on your shirt and still be a bigot. There are people who stick rainbows in their ears or wear them on their fingers or slap them across their cheeks in badges of defiance and will still hate you for the color of your skin, or the size of your thighs, or your gender, or the genders you like to kiss, or don't. Don't ask me why this happens. It just does. I think it might be that we've been all taught to hate ourselves for so damn long that we don't know how to create a space with no hate. Or maybe it's that that space seems too small because...
8. There are people who will tell you that you are not enough, that you do not reach the magical benchmark of gay enough to pass through the gate, even, especially when you are some flavor of the rainbow other than straight out gay. 8. This is bullshit. 8. Those people are bullshit. 8. You are enough. 8. There's always enough room.
9. There's no overarching homosexual agenda. Sorry, we're all kind of feeling along in here trying to figure out some way to make it work. When most of us have nothing in common, except that society looked at us in different ways and decided we didn't fit, so we could all go be misfits together under one big rainbow flag. But just so you know...
10. There's plenty of other flags. There's one for you, I promise. And...
11. Misfits may not all need the same things, but when we stick together, especially in a world where...
12. Refer to point 7. There are lesbians who hate other lesbians for having the audacity to be born in a body that the world looked at and assumed boy. Which brings me to...
13. There's so much to understand.
14. You need to understand because we need to stick together. And to stick together, we don't have to be the same, but we do have to understand that it will be hard because you are probably thrown into this world with no warning. Because...
15. Being queer is not genetic, and we are not unique among minorities, in that we must collect our heritage through broken bits of history and research in a world constantly working to erase us, like we are yesterday's wrong answers. But we are unique in that when we try to prove our legacy, we can be laughed down, or re-erased, or flat out ignored, but I swear to you, you have a history as old as Alexander the Great, as brilliant as Sappho, as dignified as Abraham Lincoln, and as proud as Eleanor Roosevelt.
But even with that behind us, 16, they have always watched us die.
Because 16, even though the bystander effect is bullshit, no one ever mentions that Kitty Genovese was a lesbian. 16, Ronald Reagan was a mass murderer and needs to be remembered that way. 16, your children, your brothers and sisters and siblings of all stripes and all colors and all sexualities and all genders are being murdered every day through neglect and rejection and hate. 16, there is an entire generation of gay and bisexual men missing from history because the government chose to do nothing when they were dying by the thousands. 16, we died from the disease and died from going back into the closet and died for staying there and died for coming out. 16, they laughed at our deaths because they believed their God was punishing us for daring to love. 16, the grieving ensured the ashes of your forerunners rest on the lawn of the White House because 16, they have always watched us die.
17, you are allowed to be angry. You do not have to be one of the nice gays or one of the nice trans people or sweet or kind or educate the rest of the world in anything less than a yell. You are allowed to be so furious it scalds your bones at the way we are forgotten and passed over at the way. As soon as June becomes July, we are expected to go back to dying in silence and mourning our dead and kissing in closets where no one can be offended at the sight of us. You are allowed to be angry and scream down the stars so they shatter like broken glass at your feet. Because you know what?
1.
The first pride
was a riot.
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 Was a riot.